Hi, welcome everyone on the next session in the automation track. I'm your host Wim, and I'm proud to present Eran Kinsbruner, who is a DevOps evangelist at Perforce, and he is willing to talk us about cross-browser testing using 3 open source test automation frameworks. Eran has written quite a lot of books, and if you check his bio, it's already a book by itself. So if you're interested in anything on Eran's bio and whatever he has already achieved, do not hesitate to post any questions in the Q&A sections. I would also like to invite you to participate by giving a review score to this presentation. It's always nice for the speakers to have some feedback on whatever they told you. And the persons that are most active in doing these kind of things, they have the opportunity or the likelihood to win some free ebooks from one of our sponsors, Pact and Manning. I give the word to Eran. So Eran, good luck.
Thank you, Wim, and welcome everyone. Now you set the bar quite high for me, so I will try to at least match the expectations. I only have about 45 minutes for my session and a lot of content. You know, Cypress, Playwright, Selenium, these are massive frameworks. I can speak just a full day on each of these frameworks. So what I'm going to provide you during this short session is a technical overview highlighting few of the core features, basic but also more advanced of these 3 frameworks, which are, in my mind, dominating the cross-browser test automation landscape nowadays. One second, I clicked the wrong screen. Now it's okay. So I will skip the bio because Wim did a great job. I will only add, if you do have any questions, feel free to use the Slack channel or LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm active on all these domains, so feel free to ask more questions if time does not permit here offline. I'll be happy to address that. And lastly, I'm also a Cypress ambassador, so if you have more specific questions about Cypress after this session, let me know. I have the network of Cypress on my behalf, if you like, so I can actually share some more internals of Cypress as needed. Let's look at where we are today. So end of 2022, great event, TestCon Europe, happy to be here. And when we are looking at these 3 massive test automation frameworks, Cypress, Selenium, and Playwright, Selenium is now at version 4.5.0. Cypress just released, I think it was yesterday, 10.11, and Playwright is at 127. These are the 3 websites for those of you who are not practicing one or more of these frameworks. But these are your landing pages for all documentation. Whatever you need is on this screen. Another thing that you can look at if you're interested to get started with each of these frameworks or with all of them is this GitHub link, and this is the repository of many code samples that I've provided within my recent book, Front-End Web Developer Guide to Testing. I did it with Packet Publishing, so a lot of these code samples are on this GitHub repository across both Cypress, Playwright, and Selenium. Also, Google Puppeteer. I'll say a word about Google Puppeteer during this session as well. When you are looking at these 3 frameworks, each framework has its unique architecture, and its unique architecture has its pros and cons, if you like. When you're looking at Selenium, Selenium is the legacy framework, if you like, and that's a WebDriver-based environment or framework. Puppeteer, which was originally led by Google, then the team moved to Microsoft, leading Playwright and expanding the scope of Playwright, is based on CDP, Chrome Debugger Protocol. And Cypress is JavaScript only, maybe JavaScript / TypeScript only language, which runs on the browser itself. And that's this framework is led by the Cypress community, but also the Cypress organization. What is the difference between these 3, other than, you know, people might say execution speed or flakiness, etc. You can look at Selenium as a framework that is owned and led by community only, no profit, if you like. Playwright is owned by Microsoft, Puppeteer is owned by Google, and Cypress is owned by Cypress. So there is kind of maybe an unfair balance between the owners of these frameworks. If time permits, I might say a word about my opinion about what it means. If you look at the downloads of these frameworks, and again, this is just for JavaScript. JavaScript is the common language across Selenium, Playwright, and Puppeteer. But obviously, once you get to the end of my session, you will understand that Playwright and Selenium actually has much more language binding supported. But when you are just looking at JavaScript, Cypress is leading the downloads for this framework. Then you see Puppeteer, and below you see Playwright. Playwright again has other language bindings supported. Let's start with Playwright. If you want to understand some of the power that Playwright has for its practitioners, you can see that it's based on the architecture. We talked a bit earlier on CDP. That's the architecture that Playwright is built on top of, inheriting from Google Puppeteer. But Playwright, due to its architecture, it's not only supporting all major browsers like WebKit, Safari, Mozilla, and Chrome. It actually has full access to all of the processes that you can think of. And this enables, it's not just access. This access means a lot. This access enables you guys, practitioners, to automate extensively, the UI, the APIs, performance, accessibility, okay, network control, and many other things. So the architecture of Playwright is very powerful, and you can see here it allows you to do so many different things on the application running on the browser itself. Okay, and if you want to get started with Playwright, okay, you need to understand that Playwright comes with its own unique Playwright test runner, Playwright test runner, and this is the default. That's the default API for the Playwright framework. But if you want to use other test runners within your script, it supports both Jest, Jasmine, Mocha, and others. So definitely it's a very extensive framework from a test runner perspective, which actually enriches your assertions, your conditions that you put within your scripts, and other validations that you want to do. To get started with Playwright, especially, again, I'm only going to focus on JavaScript in my session. If you want to use other languages, it's going to be a bit different setup. I'm going to talk a bit about the setup only from a JavaScript perspective. So you need to install the Node package for Playwright, okay, like that. And basically, you will see that once you are done with the installation and all the dependencies that are associated with this framework, you'll be able to write your first script either with Visual Studio Code. That's, in my mind, the recommended IDE, because again, it's owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft actually recently invested in adding an execution, a run button in the Visual Studio Code just specifically for Playwright. So definitely Microsoft is investing a lot in this framework, trying to get more developers using it, not just from JavaScript, but also .NET and other languages. So if you're familiar with Mocha and Jest and the other language test runners, you'll see that there are a lot of things that are familiar in the scripts. But basically, when you're using Playwright test, you'll see that it's working on the page object. And that's how it works against the browser, or the browser context, if you like. To run a specific script, you just run Playwright test. If you want to see the report at the end of the execution, you just run Playwright show report. That's simple. What is interesting about Playwright, which you won't see in Cypress and other frameworks, is that Playwright comes built in with a test parallelization or test distribution mechanism. And if you look at the right bottom side of my slide, you will see that when I am distributing or running a test in a headed mode, right? You can run it headless, or you can run it with the UI of the browser. When I'm running it with a headed method and I configure 3 browsers, it's kind of running the test in parallel against the 3 workers. So it is able to automatically split the execution across all the supported browsers that are installed locally on your machine, or you want to configure them to run from CI or other environment. It's fully supported. You can also use different configurations to ignore specific test cases or skip specific test cases. It's built into the framework as well. So if I'm running, let's say, 8 test cases, but I'm ignoring 2 of them, I'm going to only use 6 workers. Okay, so the parallelization works fine with Playwright, but also you can take it to the next level by using the test ignore and the test skip, or even the test fix me command here that allows you to, if you have a flaky test, if you have a test that is not relevant to the execution, you can just add a tag to the test and you will just not run it in your execution scenario. Playwright is, again, a powerful solution, and it comes with 3 main tools. The first one is the code gen. The other one is the inspector. Inspector actually is built into the code gen, and the code gen is the recorder. So there is a low code or codeless method within Playwright that allows you to record specific browser actions into JavaScript or other languages. And it also comes built in with an object spy, and that's the Playwright Inspector. It allows you to really understand which elements are visible, which elements you want to use within your code, and you can get started by just recording a script and then exporting it to your IDE and continuously working from the IDE. Another tool that you have coming with Playwright, you don't need to install any of these, these are all built in, is the Trace Viewer. Trace Viewer allows you to generate HAR file, network trace for the entire execution, so you can monitor performance and security and other things that are happening, APIs that are being used within your full testing scope. So all of these 3 tools are built into Playwright and making Playwright a very modern and a very powerful solution. Just to put all of what I've just talked about in a list, you don't need to remember all of that. You will get the slides, but again, resilient locators within the object spy or the Playwright Inspector, built-in parallelization, it's obviously open source, multiple language bindings, JavaScript and TypeScript, of course, Python, Java, C#, .NET, Mocha, Jasmine, but also a few other less known test runners are supported. All browsers or all the major browsers are supported. You can use headed or headless execution methods, and you can use also mobile device emulation if you want to test, let's say, a responsive web and you want to mimic an iPhone or an Android device. You can do it through the Playwright APIs. Another feature that comes with Playwright, and you don't need to do it on your own, is the auto wait. The auto wait actually allows the framework to only click on a button upon it was completely rendered on the web application on your browser. If you're familiar with other frameworks like Selenium, for Selenium you need to use other assertions, explicit or implicit waits, and other kind of sophistication within your script to synchronize the GUI and your test. With Playwright, it comes built in, and it's part of the auto wait mechanism. And there are other, mocking and network control and file handling and iframes that are supported. So to make it short, this is a very modern, very advanced framework, and it's only 2.5 years in the marketplace, and it's already caught up with many features that are in Selenium and also Cypress for many more years. You can use Playwright, and now I'm going to just highlight few advanced things that you can maybe you didn't know about, at least you need to know about with Playwright. So as I mentioned earlier, Playwright comes with its default report, and you just execute the test and you'll click or run from the CLI Playwright show report, but you will get a very basic command line or HTML pass-fail result that we are all familiar with. You can take it for free and install the plugin for Allure, and with this plugin, you simply get a much more user-friendly and more detailed test execution report for you to share with your developers or even your own audit trails. So if you follow these few steps here, it's very simple. It's just installing the plugin, generating the folder, and now after you run the test with this command line added, you're going to generate the full report, and it's going to do the following. You're going to use Allure open, and the report that was generated in the folder in the previous slide is going to open, and this is how it's going to look like. Obviously, a bit more user-friendly than just seeing pass-fail in your CLI. Okay, so Allure report is a nice thing that you can add to Playwright. Another thing that I mentioned earlier is the trace viewer. The only thing that you need to do is to just enable this feature. It's baked into the framework, but by default it's disabled. You just need to turn the flag to on in the Playwright config file, and then you're going to get the trace of the entire execution. You can see here performance insights, all the actions and API calls and everything that was happening in your own local machine. API testing fully supported within Playwright, also within Cypress. I will talk about it once we move to Cypress, but API testing can be done and exercised within Playwright framework. All methods, pause, delete, get are fully supported. So basically you can do both functional testing and also API testing with Playwright. The code gen, if you want to get started just with Playwright, after you install it, you will just click npx playwright code gen. You will put the URL that you want to cover. Let's say TestCon Europe. That's the URL. If you want to go to the event URL, you just run the following command, and then you'll get a local incognito browser opened. You can specify, by the way, which browser you want to record on. And this is basically your interface. You can record, you can debug your script, you can examine using the inspector all the elements on this web application by just mouse overing the elements. So it's a very powerful thing. And using the target button, you can actually export whatever you recorded into the Playwright test format, jest, other language bindings, like TypeScript or Python, etc. This is just another kind of zoom into the previous slide that shows you how you can debug doing step over, etc., and looking at the different elements from the inspector. You can also use Playwright with BDD. So if your team is using Cucumber BDD, you can install the plugin for Cucumber for Playwright, and basically you are able to use Gherkin style scenarios together and run Playwright with BDD. This is just basically how it's going to look like, both the step definition in JavaScript and the scenarios in Gherkin. Playwright fully integrates with all CI/CD tools. So basically you can use GitHub Actions, Circle CI, Bitbucket, Jenkins, Docker, anything that you are familiar with fully plays with Playwright. So you can schedule all of the executions to run within your CI pipeline. Let's move to Cypress. As I mentioned, I'm going to be brief, but trying to give you as much as I can, of a taste per each of these frameworks. So Cypress, as I mentioned, is owned by Cypress, which is a commercial tool. These are just few of the things or few of the engagement methods for you to work with Cypress. Obviously the website, but also the social media, Discord. There is also a gitter.im Cypress channel. I'm again a Cypress ambassador. If you want to join the ambassador community, you can also apply and join and contribute to the Cypress community. But that's basically what Cypress allows you to look at and engage with. Recently, I partnered with Gleb. Gleb Mahamudov is one of the, I would say, even founders of Cypress. He's a thought leader on the Cypress front, and is, in my mind, the world expert in Cypress. And I invited him to contribute a free course for Cypress 10. Cypress is now on version 10.10, and what Gleb created is a very thorough, I think it was 10 or 11 modules of Cypress 10.0 version, and it's getting started, but also going towards more advanced capabilities of Cypress. So if you are new to Cypress and you want to learn from the source, and Gleb is the source of Cypress, feel free to go to the Blazemeter University. It's free. You don't need to pay anything, and you just go and do it online from your own machine in your own schedule, and become a bit more familiar with the Cypress 10 fundamentals. And if you want to learn about JMeter, performance testing, mocking services, and other things that are on that university, it's all free as well. So check it out. In my mind, it's a very useful and powerful resource. As I mentioned, Cypress runs on the browser, which makes it very robust, very reliable, and also quite fast. The only thing that you need to do to install Cypress, and Cypress is JavaScript, TypeScript only, you need to install the package, the Node.js, npm install Cypress, and basically once you do so with all the dependencies, you can then run either from the command line your Cypress scripts, or you can run npx cypress open and get this view of the UI. And basically Cypress works like that. On the left side, you would see the commands of your script in JavaScript or TypeScript. But by the way, also Cucumber is supported, BDD. And on the right hand, this is the application under test. So you see a full synchronized view of the test cases and the application under test, which in my mind, especially if you are a front-end web developer, it's very useful to understand what is happening at each and every moment in your test execution flow, either as you are creating the test or as you are running it and want to get feedback. This is basically what you see here. This is the inspector. So as Playwright comes with a code gen inspector, Cypress has its unique inspector for learning all the DOM objects and getting even a snapshot of the DOM at every single point in your test execution flow. This is how you will see the object. So if I'm mouse hovering or clicking on this element email here, you will see that this is kind of the object, and you can just use this button to copy the element into your IDE, VS Code, or IntelliJ, whatever IDE that you are using. And this is how the DOM snapshot is going to look like before the test case was running, and also you can use the after. So you can actually see the test step by step and understand how it behaves. Cypress also comes with a lot of sophistication. One of the things that I found very useful, especially from a test automation engineering perspective, you are always testing maybe the same scenarios, but you are testing against different environments. Maybe different environments have different capabilities, different feature flags, etc. Some are production configured, some are staging, pre-prod, etc. So with Cypress, you have the ability to configure, via properties and then execution command line, against which environment you're going to run the test. For example, you can configure your local environment to be the dev environment, and this is the URL that you're going to test against. And if I'm going to configure here the name to be, instead of prod, it's going to be local, okay, then the test case is going to run against my local environment and vice versa. Okay, so running across multiple environments with Cypress is very useful, very easy to do, and in my mind also a good practice when you want to utilize a single test against multiple environments. Cypress recently added a converter. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Chrome recorder, so Chrome browser, if you go to F12, your DevTools, which I think any user of a Chrome browser would be familiar with, Chrome added since Chrome version 100 a basic recorder for testing, and this recorder generates a JSON file, okay, of all the test cases that you recorded. With Cypress Converter, you can actually use the Chrome recorder and convert it from JSON into Cypress syntax test cases. So if you want to get started with the Chrome recorder and move to Cypress, it's also possible. If you want, Cypress comes with the Cypress Studio recorder as well. So if you are Cypress and you are all in on Cypress, I wouldn't use that. I'm just pointing it out that that's, again, something that is feasible with both Cypress and the Chrome recorder. Like Playwright, Cypress also supports API testing, so you can use Cypress like I did here to do any kind of API testing, complementing your functional testing. Cypress comes also with a package called Find Cypress Specs. Using this module or package or library, you name it, you can actually optimize your pipeline, meaning you can use this command line option to find only the changed test specs in JavaScript or TypeScript and only run them. You can use different tagging mechanism like sign user based on the features that you are testing and configure the find Cypress spec command to run only against specific tags. So this is a good way of optimizing a very complex pipeline. If you have grown your suite into hundreds of scenarios and you want to kind of govern these scenarios, this is a very good way of using Cypress with find Cypress specs methodology. And you can see here, how it finds all the names of the specs. You can use it to find all the tags that you already did, or count only the test cases that have been changed on the main branch from the previous execution. It's a very powerful add-on to Cypress that can be very useful to optimization of your execution. Cypress Studio, like Playwright CodeGen, does exactly the same, just in a different UI. It's currently still in beta, but it's working. I've tested it myself. So you can use Cypress Studio to record or inject a specific step into existing test code in JavaScript. Okay, basically you're going to click on in between the steps on the edit button that is going to be like here, and the studio is launching, and you can record a step that is going to be generated in JavaScript and added to your code source file. So Studio Beta, Cypress Studio Beta is in beta, as I mentioned. You only need to enable it into the Cypress config JSON file to the experimental studio equals true. Once you enable it, basically you're going to get this capability. Another, I would say, experimental or beta feature, which was very well anticipated by the community, was the support for WebKit Safari. So starting a version, I think it was 10.5, Cypress added support for the WebKit Safari and actually complemented the major browser. If you look at the community before this additional feature, everyone was kind of saying, yeah, Cypress lacks the main browser, which is Safari. So if you are doing responsive web or other browser testing, you need additional frameworks. So Cypress obviously did a lot of put a lot of effort into closing the gap. And as of now, you just need to enable, like you did with the Cypress Studio in the previous slide, you need to enable WebKit support, put it as true. And once you do it, you can actually see here, either in the GUI or in the command line, that you have the WebKit supported, and you can run in parallel on Edge, Chrome, Firefox, and WebKit, which are the major browsers in any case. You can use Cypress and also Playwright with Istanbul and Babel. So if you want to do code coverage and you have the access to your source code of your developers, you can instrument and use with Cypress plugin. That's the plugin for the Cypress code coverage. This is how you would install it and configure it, and you will get code coverage upon each execution of your Cypress test cases. Cypress is a mile away from releasing component testing as GA. It's very close. In my mind, it's already GA, and that's a new capability that allows developers and test automation engineers to kind of bridge the gap between unit and integration testing. So if you want to take a Vue.js component or a React component on your web application and just focus testing on that, you can do it with component testing by using the mount option. I think I have it here. So basically, you're going to do mount to-do list. This is a component within a web application written in React. So basically, you're going to only do the testing on the to-do list and kind of isolate your testing on that area of your browser. It's a very good way of doing isolation testing, especially if the web application is still undergoing development. It's kind of incrementally being built. So doing this isolation testing is a very cool thing. And by the way, Playwright is also close to maturing its own component testing. So it's going to be on par, Cypress component testing and Playwright component testing. To run it, your testing with component testing, you're going to use the OpenCT component testing method in your execution command, whether you're doing it from command line or from CI. To summarize a few things about Cypress, Cypress, as I mentioned, runs on the browser. It's JavaScript, TypeScript, and BDD supported. It has multiple plugins that are already supported with the community, and things are added as we speak: visual testing, code coverage, Cucumber BDD, API testing, accessibility testing, component testing, as I mentioned. You can use custom commands for either building a page object model like environment or other testing activities, more modern test activities. I talked earlier about multiple environment testing that you can do with Cypress. So to make it short, it's a very mature, very advanced technology that is just growing. Just to summarize Playwright Cypress, I haven't talked yet a bit about Selenium. So Playwright has its code gen for inspection and for codeless. It supports all these language bindings. Cypress has its Cypress Studio for low code and supports TypeScript and JavaScript. Selenium has the Selenium IDE for the low code test automation recording, and it supports a bit more language bindings, and it's in version 4.5.0. If you want to look at a summary table of these frameworks, you can see that a lot of these frameworks are kind of supporting the same capabilities. It's all about your maturity, your skill set within the team that is doing test automation. And if you have legacy Selenium scripts that are working, I wouldn't really change them, because you see that there are differences, but they are not really that critical. Okay, so yes, the architecture of the frameworks is different. The execution speed is much faster with Playwright and Cypress compared to Selenium because of the architecture. But you see component testing as a differentiator. Playwright, I would actually probably change it to yellow because it's almost GA as well. It's coming. Okay, and you see here headless browser testing is not the on the wheelhouse of Selenium. It's fully supported by Cypress and Playwright. Cypress stabilities has relative locators, both like Selenium, but Playwright has the auto weighting, which also enables resiliency and stability of your scripts. With the time that I have left, I want to just cover, because I left Selenium to the end, because in my mind, Selenium is the most advanced and the most mature framework, which in my mind, many practitioners already know. So what I've added at the end of my slide or my session is just a bunch of slides focusing on Selenium 4 and what was recently added. So if you look at Selenium, Selenium is a WebDriver framework which implemented from Selenium 4 a new grid architecture, which enables better scalability, better performance of execution. I set it up myself. It's easier to set up, it's faster to execute, and it's more reliable and robust. It added also relative locators to the framework, and as you know, it has all these language bindings: Java, Python, C#, Ruby, JavaScript, and Kotlin. I would say a major feature that was added to Selenium 4 is the compliance to W3C. So if up until today or up until Selenium 3, you are using the following APIs or commands to find elements and interacting with elements on your web application, after Selenium 4, since it's W3C compliant, you need to do some minor changes and by the way, this is just a small subset, but you will see that there are syntax changes for compliance's sake to W3C. Okay, so Selenium 3 on the left, Selenium 4 on the right. These are a few changes that you need to take into account if you're not already on Selenium 4. Selenium supports, in my mind, in a much more mature manner, especially compared to Cypress, by the way, multiple windows and tabs. So if you want to interact with multiple tabs and windows, you can do it with Selenium 4. In Cypress, you are running on the browser itself, so you cannot interact with multiple windows and tabs, especially not in an easy method using Cypress. With Selenium, it's quite easy. Selenium added an integration to CDP. Playwright, if you remember in the earliest part of my session, Playwright supports CDP. Actually, it's built on CDP. Selenium integrates with CDP, and it enables your developers to take advantage of emulation of geolocation using the Lighthouse for audit of accessibility and performance, and much more. Next, the relative locators, in my mind, adds to the reliability of your script. So if you have multiple elements that are the same, using Selenium 4, you can use to left, off, below, and other kind of pointers to really pinpoint the exact element before you click on it, and this adds to your stability and less flakiness of your script. This is just a snippet of how you would use Selenium 4 to work on multiple tabs and windows, and this is a common implementation today of many web applications. So using get all windows handles and switching from a specific window to a different window is fully supported in Selenium 4 and allows you to control the same application across the different tabs or windows using a single script. And lastly, the Selenium IDE was rewritten, if you like, and it's a plugin not just for Chrome, it's also a plugin for the Firefox browser. It has a new UI, it has more work and support for the elements using the object spy here, but it's, in my mind, not even close to the usability and power of both the Playwright CodeGen and the Cypress Studio. So it is a low-code recorder, but honestly, it's not that mature. With that, I want to leave just a few more minutes for Q&A, but basically that was what I wanted to share with you in a very short amount of time. So I hope you at least got a glimpse of a technical overview of both Playwright, Cypress, and Selenium 4. And now if you have any questions, you can shoot them to me in the private chat, or we can actually use the Slack channel as well. Let me just stop sharing my slides so we can actually move to the Q&A. And I see that we have some questions.
Yeah, Eran, you have quite some questions. Already 14 in total, and I think people just started launching more questions. I'm going over the questions that are in Pine, and I'm going for the ones that have been upvoted the most. So the first question is, why to use Playwright instead of Cypress? Cypress component testing.
It's a great question, and I wouldn't, as I mentioned, both Cypress and Playwright are in the final stages of supporting component testing, this isolation of areas of your web application. Both are working quite okay. I wouldn't switch from one framework to the next just for component testing, because again, both frameworks support it. So if you already use today Cypress, use Cypress and use Cypress for component testing, and vice versa. If you're using Playwright, use Playwright. But again, I wouldn't switch from one to the next just for component testing. It's a core feature of both.
Okay, a second question. To summarize, what is the most universal framework, Cypress or Playwright?
That's a very tough one. And I will try to put myself, even though I'm a Cypress ambassador, I will try to be as honest as I can. Playwright, in my mind, is a bit more modern. It has more language bindings. It has Microsoft that supports it, and makes the development a bit more friendly because it's plugging it into the Visual Studio Code. Cypress is a bit more mature than Playwright because it has been in the marketplace 1 or 2 years more. So I don't know what the guy that asked the question means by universal. I think that Playwright has a bit more language bindings, but other than that, they are, in my mind, quite similar, and you can accomplish the same amount of test coverage using both frameworks.
Okay, thank you. The next one. Can you share an object from an API response to UI test using Cypress? Let's say use token.
I think you can. I haven't tried it myself, but in my mind, I think you can do it. So if I don't know who asked this question. If you need more information, I'll provide you the link to how you use Cypress functional and API testing to do so. I think it's doable based on what I know. So the answer is yes.
Okay. And next one, are there any plans to use Cypress for mobile automation testing?
The short answer is no. By the way, for both Playwright and Cypress, what they can do, they can emulate mobile viewports for web applications, not for mobile native. Okay. And by the way, that's a good question because Selenium, in my mind, kind of differentiates between Cypress and Playwright because Selenium has Appium, which is his younger brother, and Appium is the native mobile automation framework. So Selenium plus Appium gives you both web and mobile. You don't have that with Cypress or with Playwright, which are fully web-oriented.
Okay, thanks. The next one, is C# compatible with Playwright as it is for Selenium?
Can you please repeat, Wim? I'm sorry, by the way, there is some background noise. Someone is using a blower. I'm sorry about that. Bad timing.
So the question is C# compatible with Playwright as it is for Selenium?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Again, owned by Microsoft, so they know their things better than anyone else. So you can use C# with Playwright as you would use it with Selenium.
Yeah, okay. We still have time for some more questions. How is Playwright auto-weighting different from Cypress auto-weighting? Auto-weighting is mentioned as a feature in the slides next to Playwright, but not Cypress.
So with Playwright, this is a fully baked-in functionality of the framework. I've done it with Cypress. It wasn't as friendly and as reliable as I was using Playwright. You can use and you can leverage synchronization with auto weights also with Cypress. It requires a bit more effort from a coding perspective. With Playwright, it really comes for free. So I still stand behind my experience that that's a differentiator in favor of Playwright.
Okay. You're very quick at answering questions, Eran, so I can keep bringing them in. How good is Playwright in handling chained iframes?
So that is a question that I don't want to say for 100% because I haven't tested iframes with Playwright. I know that it is supported according to the documentation of Playwright. It is fully supported by Selenium. It is not supported for sure, at least not easily by Cypress. It is fully supported by Playwright. The only thing is I haven't tested it myself, so I'm just putting a disclaimer so no one will come and say Eran said iframes with Playwright, but it is documented as supported. So you should be able to do so with Playwright like you do it with Selenium.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Is there a way to record the responses? Oh, there it's shifting. To record the responses of every request in the trace viewer of Playwright. I couldn't find them when I tried it out.
Again, trace recorder. The question was about the trace viewer.
Yeah. Yeah, Eran posted something here in the.
Sorry, Wim. Yeah, I just sent the link for the iframe and how you use iframe. I'm sorry. But you were asking Wim about the trace viewer. What was the question? That someone couldn't find it?
Yeah, to record the responses of every request in the trace viewer of Playwright. Somebody couldn't find it.
So the trace viewer is going to record whatever you have, from your execution flow. If you want to record additional things, you have, by the way, the API testing abilities built into the framework itself. So you can put API testing and you can use the trace to record everything and enrich your trace viewer log. Okay. The trace viewer is reflecting everything that you are doing on the browser itself. So if you're just doing, a subset of the things, it's not going to output more than what the basic. So you can enrich the trace log that is being generated by adding more knowledge or more commands and requests, responses, assertions into your Playwright script. So it's up to you to enrich, in my mind, the trace viewer. But basically, again, it comes with the framework. It records the trace viewer by just enabling it, and you can use the HAR viewer from Google or other tools to represent the generated file on your browser or other viewer.
Okay, thank you, Eran. I think we're going to close off the Q&A here. How can people reach you if they have any other questions, because they're still coming in?
Sure, you can use either the Slack channel from the TestCon Europe, or just reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and I'll be happy to answer and continue the conversation after this session as well.
Yeah, okay. A big warm thank you, Eran. It was quite a lengthy chat, so I really think you deserved your glass of water or whatever you're going to drink right after this talk. And I would like to invite all participants to join me for the closing keynote for today, which will start in 5 minutes. It's Rolf Molik, who will be talking about usability. See you in 5.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.